Some funky music you got there.
Good morning and welcome to Dateline New Haven at WNHH-FM, your home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. We're welcome today a man who has made New Haven tick for a long time, longer than some of our listeners have been alive, Brian Jenkins, familiar face in New Haven politics and community organizing. Brian Jenkins, very nice to see you this morning, sir. Thanks for coming on the air.
The pleasure's all mine. The pleasure's all mine. It truly is, Paul. You and I have known each other for quite some time, and I want to be remiss I didn't pause and applaud you for the work that you've been doing for years in bringing to the attention of the public not only issues germane to City Hall, but issues that are germane to the city in general. And so I want to thank you so very much. Now look, let's be clear here. You and I haven't always agreed, but my respect for you has been extremely high, and so I thank you for inviting me to participate and just discuss a few things with you. So wherever the conversation goes, I'm all for it.
All right, and right back at you. I've always had the deepest respect for you, Brian Jenkins. Greta Johnson says, hello, my friend. Thanks for tuning in, Greta Johnson. So, Brian, I thought we could talk about a lot of stuff. And I thought a lot of it might come back to the way politics works, because you've been in the game. I think I first met you in 1989. You were working for John Daniels, running for mayor.
Yes.
And I had the greatest time that day because I got to ride around with you in the Brookside and other West Rock housing developments where your family has played such a role, beginning with your mom, Bess Jenkins. And you were very excited that day. You were a young man helping elect the first African mayor in New Haven, getting people out, convincing them to vote. And I just, I caught the excitement that day with how you felt you could make a difference. And now you've spent 30 years since then trying to make a difference in different levels. You've been an alderman. You've been involved in committee politics. You're down as well in Georgia running for office. So I'm very interested in how you see, after all your years being involved in the system, the way politics works and how communities can and can't be empowered. So first of all, you're in Georgia right now, right?
Correct.
And what are you noticing about COVID? In Georgia, they've been relaxing the restrictions, though we're about to do that in New Haven. And I saw that in Albany, Georgia. The African-American community is upset about the restrictions being relaxed because they feel the toll is going to be heavy on the African community. But there's been opposite voices too. How are things down there? What's your take on it?
Well, it's primarily what you just stated. There's an uproar with a hasty decision in which some people view the decision by the governor, whereas you have the governor and the mayor of Atlanta are kind of at odds. And the mayor basically says, well, look, that's the governor, but this is my city. I don't feel as though opening the government at this juncture is wise. Sure, we're still trying to figure some things out. So there are a lot of people, particularly in the Black community, who concur with her position. Unfortunately, the younger generation seems to somehow think invincible and that this virus in no way can penetrate through their exterior. And this is their thing.
I'm sorry, Brian. I think we just lost you for a moment there. We're talking to Brian Jenkins, who has been an important figure in New Haven politics and also now down in Georgia here on Dateline New Haven, WNHH-FM 103.5 FM. And I apologize that we tend to have some technical difficulties since we have moved remotely to radio. You got a comment here, Brian. Brian, you've always been part of building our community. I'm so proud of you being part of the movement of positivity for us as a people. Harry Droz is our station manager. We just lost Brian. Do you think we were going to ask Brian not to go on the visual this time, Harry? Do you think that'll help?
What I'm going to do Brian?
I'm here. Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, Brian, I'm gonna shut down the video portion because I think you're having bandwidth problems.
Well, yeah, but why don't we just run it so long as we can, and then if it shuts down, it shuts down.
What
Because I
we learned yesterday, Brian, with J.R. Romano, is because he didn't have a lot of bandwidth, he kept getting lost. But once we took the video off but kept the audio, it was perfect.
Well, I mean, it's your call. I mean, we're here, so my suggestion would
Okay. See, we just lost you again.
be
I
because
think
I
your
like to see your hands.
bandwidth. Yeah.
But it's up to you.
We could also use your profile picture. Harry, Brian has a fantastic picture on the homepage of his Facebook page, Brian L. Jenkins, of him running for office in Georgia that you might want to think of pulling that up. So, Brian, can you hear me? Brian, can you hear me, Brian Jenkins?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you very well, Paul.
Okay. So have you also been following the situation in New Haven? I know you're involved daily in the dates. You're in contact with people. When you look at what's happening in Georgia, you look at what's happening in New Haven, do you see similarities or differences in how this situation is being handled and how it's affecting the Black community?
Yeah, yes and no. To the mayor's credit, I mean, there isn't much he can do. He can only deal the hand that he's dealt. And to his credit, he is trying to bring to the attention the seriousness of it, and I certainly credit him for that. There are similarities in that again, the young people again seem to think, and that isn't just unique to Atlanta, but it's unique in cities all across the United States where young people appear as though they're infallible, and so mayors have their hands tied in that sense when you allow barbershops and beauty salons and certain restaurants to open and movie theaters. Um, One may think it's geared specifically to a certain um, demographic. I don't like to think like that, but it's kind of easy to arrive there. That demographic will certainly frequent those places, um, and and as a result of that, of course, the outcome is grim. But yes, there are some similarities. That's one of the reasons why I stay on my daughter to make sure that my grandchildren play within them amongst themselves, and not run around with their friends as they would normally do. And so she's been pretty obedient as far as ensuring that doesn't take place. And so I just continue to pray for her
Have
and
you
all
been
the
able to
other
see your
families.
grandchildren?
Pardon?
Have you been able to see your grandchildren?
Uh, what do you mean by see them?
Get together with them?
Well, no, not as a result of this. They were with me for Christmas, but since this occurred, no. But we talk frequently.
That's why I was asking, because I get a vibe here, Brian, that you and I have a generational similarity here. We're about the same age.
Yes.
And I too have not been able to get together with my grandson, and it's killing me.
Yes.
But we're feeling very strict that we don't want people to die.
Correct.
And we see it very differently from a younger generation, which feels that, in our view, they feel like it's not going to hurt them. But I'm very concerned about, and especially you brought up the barbershops, which is really interesting because there's so many facets to that discussion. So I'm sure you're hearing this too. Some people feel that Black barbershops and salons in particular should have been able to open because there's such a lifeline for employment and they weren't getting the aid. But other people say that's going to be the most dangerous place to spread infections, so that while you might be getting people a paycheck for another 2 months, you're going to kill them. And there was an added wrinkle in that Governor Lamont's task force really didn't have anybody who understood that business. So they made a rule of no blow dryers when you reopen next week. And Black hairstylists statewide were up in arms, and they were right, saying, if you're going to make this rule, why are you putting us out of business? Because when you do African-American people's hair, it's different, and we won't be able to do it without a hair dryer. Then other people came back and said, The hair dryer is the number one way you're going to kill everybody because it's going to spread the virus all over the room. So where do you come in and all that? Because I don't know where I come in.
Well, there's a whole lot of tentacles associated with that, Paul. Let me just say this, that if, for example, there's an uproar from the Black community regarding that, then it would behoove the governor to at least have someone in his administration that understands and has a relationship with the Black community. Now, it was the Black community who came out in huge numbers to support this governor. Well, now it's the governor's turn to return that favor by ensuring that the Black community receives all the necessary attention. And if, for example, there are these checks that are supposed to be available for other businesses, then why not allow those checks to be available for their businesses as well? But let me just pause for a moment. And I want the Black community to pay close attention to what is transpiring here. If the governor cannot
Brian, you still there? You're listening to Dateline New Haven, WNHH-FM, 103.5 M, live stream, newhavenevent.org. We're talking to Brian Jenkins about politics, COVID, New Haven, Atlanta. And Brian, I apologize, we can't hear your audio now. Are you still on the other line? Because you're showing up as being present in this Zoom meeting.
Yep.
All right. So when we were last, oh, now you're gone. Oh, I'm sorry about that. So we got a comment from Greta Johnson. Oh, Brian's back. Greta Johnson said the mayor is open and sincere, trying to motivate the seriousness. Because Brian, before we cut off, you're saying you wanted the Black community to listen seriously when you're talking about the need of Ned Lamont to return the favor of getting all those votes.
All right. So absolutely. It is vitally important. I mean, it has to, the governor has to be reciprocal. The governor sits in that office primarily because of the vote from the city of New Haven. And so therefore, New Haven better make sure that they in turn get what they want, what they need from the governor. And let me also say this, that the mayor also needs to hold the governor accountable. Your state reps need to hold the governor accountable. Your 2 state senators need to hold the governor accountable. The Board of Aldermen needs to hold the governor accountable. And if none of them do that, then all of them should be removed.
And this raises a question to me that's a more long-standing question about how politics works. Is it possible for a well-meaning white politician who gets the support of the Black community to get elected to truly understand the community and deliver in turn? Do you think it's just possible that Ned's clueless?
Well, if he's clueless, Paul, it is done purposely. He wasn't clueless in understanding that in order for him to succeed, he needs to usurp the Black vote. He wasn't clueless when it came to that. And so I believe he's going through what I would denote as a violent, a subjective cluelessness. Okay, so he chooses to be clueless, using your term.
Okay. Now, if you suggest our elected official press the governor harder to deliver, I think we can all agree on that. There really was very little to no aid given that trickled down to the African American community, with a few exceptions. What is the specific ask? Like last night, they did change the rule about Black-run salons and saying they can use their hair blowers. But what do we specifically want from the governor?
Well, one of the things that I would love to see the Board of Aldermen, particularly those in the Black and Brown community, is to coalesce around the understanding of developing an economic agenda. The vast majority of the that are hemorrhaging health-wise, hemorrhaging educationally wise, hemorrhaging monetarily, and they have not understood
Okay, Brian. Unfortunately, yeah. There's some internet. The internet, the grid has been overtaxed since COVID-19
Of course,
started. Oh, there
if
you are. Okay.
yeah, if the governor cannot address that agenda, of course, you
Mhm.
don't want to present something, Paul, that is beyond reality. You want to present a tangible agenda. If he cannot address that agenda, then you make sure that you will not address the governor when he's up for reelection. Yeah, absolutely. Politics is about service. That's what politics is about. And some folk may have a relationship with the governor, but if that relationship isn't trickled down into helping others, then what kind of relationship do you have? And so that's how I view politics, Paul. Politics is about service. How are you helping other people? And if you're not helping other people, then we need to get rid of that individual and put someone in there who's willing, who has a track record of doing just that.
Is it fair to say, Brian Jenkins, that you first came up with that thinking about what public service is from your mother, Bess Jenkins, who for a long time was the chair of the Ward 30 Democratic Committee and was the person whose home people came to when they were running for us, asking support? Is it accurate to say that's something you watched as a child and then sort of your entree?
It's real interesting that you would ask me that question because I had this discussion a few days ago, actually, that I remember sitting at my kitchen table with my mother and Mo and Gene Wadley and Elliot Gomes and a few other individuals, of course, myself being very young. And they would always discuss strategy, and my mother would meet with uh, uh, Vinnie Morrow Sr. and how he was trying to make sure that my mother delivered the 30th Ward to support Ben DeLito and other individuals. Of course, my mother was supporting Logue during that election when Ben and Hank Parker primaried Logue. My mother was supportive of Logue, and so of course we were. And every individual that we supported, the 30th Ward always won when my mother was in that leadership position. And so, yes, those are discussions that my mom would instill in me, and understanding that your word matters. When you give someone your word, whether you believe that they're going to lose, you gave them your word and you stay there. And that's one thing that I've learned. And actually, that helps shape my character because my character, and those who know me will tell you that my character has never been on the auction block, nor will it ever be on the auction block. And I believe that if you do not, again, and I apologize for being redundant, but I have to continue to bring this home, that if you do not run for office with the mindset of fighting for people, then why are you running? And so that's one of the things that we need to take a look at. But one other thing that we're not doing is we're not challenging seats. And some people think that because challenges an alderman or state rep or state senator or even a mayor, that that person hates the individual that they're challenging. It has nothing to do with that. It is a different political ideology fundamentally, and they feel as though that hopefully anyway that they can do a better job. And so I'm an old school politician, Paul. I believe in knocking on doors. I believe in talking to voters. I don't believe in running what I call a living room campaign where you sit in your living room and just have everybody do all kinds of things for you. I believe in going out there and talking to people, meeting people, grassroots politics, excuse me. I believe in that. That concept means a great deal to me because you must earn a person's vote, and your mandate should be the things that you've run on. So that's what I believe in. And yes, but let me also share this with you. There's a gentleman, Paul, you know him very well, who he and I spent oh, countless hours and days and nights together. Wendell Harp. Wendell Harp was a person who he and I spent, as I said, a great deal of time together, and I've learned a great deal from him and he me, and it was a tremendous marriage as friends, and I loved them. I cried at his funeral because people knew the exterior of the brother, but they didn't know the interior of the brother, and I got to know both. And Paul, you got the interior later on. You knew the exterior, and he shared with me a conversation that you guys had, and he was very happy. I will tell you, when you guys finally came together, he was very, very happy. And he shared that with me. He said, Brian, I would tell you, he and I met, and he wanted to do an interview because, of course, he always, turned down every interview. He wanted to do an interview, and I gave him an interview, and you would not believe what happened. I said, what, Hart? What happened? He wrote word for word what I said. so Paul, I will tell you, he had an enormous respect for you. And so you learn a great deal from a lot of different people. And I learned from Vinnie Morrow Sr., and I learned from Hank Parker. Hank Parker told me in politics, one thing about politics, he says, you don't have permanent friends and you don't have permanent enemies. And he taught me that years ago. And I didn't understand it then, but of course I understand it now. And I learned from Stanley Rogers, and I learned from so many different people. I can just go on and on.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of those people are familiar names to people of our generation. And by the way, Jeff Klaus writes in, refreshing view of politics. Thank you, Jeff Klaus. We're talking to Brian Jenkins on Dateline New Haven. And, I love listening to Brian talk about how he came up with his ideas as he grew up about how you make a difference in politics. He was in one of the most interesting living rooms in New Haven. He was on a side of town that gets very neglected by the establishment, except every 2 years when there's an election and people want the votes. And they would come to his mother's living room. And then he was friendly with others. He mentioned Stanley Rogers, Wendell Harper also would be in those positions when people came and wanted the Black community's vote. And Brian talked about the importance of running for office, the importance of grassroots politics, the importance of knocking on doors to make a difference. And Brian has now done that for many years. I see, Brian, you're running for chairman of Rockdale County Board of Commissioners in Georgia, but you're not going to be able to knock on doors now. So what is a person who believes in the old school politics of earning every vote, making your word good, knocking on the door, looking people in the eye? What are you going to do now?
Well, actually, I've been doing a great deal of that. My campaign, the span of my campaign, I started running this campaign about a year ago. So I did a lot of the groundwork already. I'm using social media, not good at it, but I have people who've been very helpful, and just taking advantage of the media. In fact, a guy, let me just give you an example. A guy contacted me today, and he said, listen, I want to do an ad for you in the local paper. So I want to pay for that ad, but I don't want to use my name. And so, and so stuff like that. There, he says, I read what you wrote in the magazine, and I just felt so refreshed that we have someone such as you. I don't want to sound as if I'm being a braggadocio, because I don't like to make things about me. I love to make things about other people. And so I apologize for that. But I'm just conveying what I experienced today. And I will tell you, I give God all the glory for that. I take absolutely no credit at all. But that is the same style that I've learned, Paul, in New Haven. But I mean, I'm back and forth. I'm in New Haven often. I'm here often. New Haven's my home. I will always love my home. I know a great deal about what's happening in New Haven. I get calls all the time about stuff. And so I write in your paper. Of course, I comment. And now people finally get to see what I look like, those who don't know. And so I don't always agree with some of the folk who comment. They don't always agree with me. But I think that those comments are very wholesome, and I think that they're very healthy. And those comments, in my view, generate a great deal of education in terms of different views and how people who may be familiar with the particular issues can identify with them from their infancy and also as they exist today. And so I think that is good for your paper, Paul, but it's also good for the city of New Haven, for people who want to know more about politics in the city of New Haven or certain individuals. I am. Some people think because I may disagree with the mayor, the current mayor in particular areas, I don't like him. That just is stupid. It truly is. I think that he's a fine young man. In fact, some folk don't know, but I actually met with the mayor in his living room. That's the first time we've ever met. And so I don't dislike the mayor. I think he's a very nice young man. He wants, I believe anyway, what's best for the city of New Haven. I just disagree, Paul, with people who run for office and win who've never paid their dues. For me, I'm just old school. I just believe in you earned the victory, and so that's where I came down. And so people who are new to politics, they wouldn't understand that, and so they think that it's a racial thing. How stupid is that? I voted for white people all my life, so that's just, in fact, most black people voted for white people, so they had nothing to do with a racial thing. Tony Hart raised taxes by 11%, horrible, and I blasted her for that because it was horrible. But then Eloquent comes back and raises them an additional 3.56, I believe. So he ate her 11%. He owns it. I just believe in smaller government, lower taxes. That's what I believe in. I voted against John and Stefano's tax increases, and he'd never seen a tax that he didn't like. And so I was against, his behavior there. John Daniels did a lot of dumb stuff when he was mayor, these are individuals that I was against. It's not personal, it's political, and so I don't make this stuff personal. I've been around too long to make this stuff personal, Paul. And
Jenkins.
Paul, in fact, you used to do an article called "Hit and Run." Everyone couldn't wait for that article to hit. Hit and Run did a tremendous service for the city of New Haven, Connecticut. And in fact, I couldn't wait. I believe it came out every Thursday. I'm not sure, but Hit and Run was a very powerful piece, and you did it until you had that kumbaya moment when Henry Fernandez, the mayor, finally sent Henry over to you, and you got to be able to develop a little piece. I know that too. You didn't think I knew that, Paul, but I knew that too. So, yeah, but
Brian, Greta Johnson writes in, Brian, people are not even taking the time to make a change. I ran for Hamden Town Community this year. There's so much trickery that goes on. I did the footwork. I realized that people have a hard way with new things. Brian, I love you. My brother and you and I have worked on many great things in public housing in the 80s. I'll always be there. So, Brian, tell me a little about your current campaign. What is the Rockdale County Board of Commissioners, and why are you seeking the chairmanship there?
But before I respond, let me just briefly respond to Greta. She's a darling woman. She's a darling person who has a tremendous heart. And she's absolutely right. And it's unfortunate that a lot of that zeal does not exist. But I love her so very much. That is a caring woman. And whatever she's involved in the city of New Haven, I implore people to associate themselves with her and help her with her efforts, because I know where it's all coming from. It's very genuine. And so I just adore that sister. Now, in addressing the chairmanship, it's a very interesting dichotomy in that the city of New Haven kind of reminds me of Rockdale County. It's a very small county. In fact, it's the second smallest county in the state of Georgia. The chairmanship is a position that is very similar to being mayor. We have a current chairman who just loves raising taxes. And that's all he's done since he's been in office for almost 12 years now, is vote to raise taxes. He has never voted no on a tax increase. And so as a fiscal conservative Democrat, I, again, believe in lower taxes, smaller government, a reduced millage rate. But the politics is different down here in that Republicans can vote in a Democratic primary. And likewise, Democrats can vote in a Republican primary. But Democrats don't cross over. Republicans do. And Republicans
do they do in good faith, or do they do to try to get a weak candidate?
Both. They do it both. But for the most part, both parties do the same thing, And so, but for the most part, the Republicans, they want good government. They want, they want to make sure that since they don't have the numbers, that they can be helpful to someone who is similar in their thinking. Of course, you're not, every candidate will say something that someone likes. You have to be a horrible candidate to say something that everyone disagrees with, and so there's some similarities there. But it is a beautiful county. I love it. I enjoy it. I've been here almost 16 years now, and beautiful people. As I often share with folk, when it rains on my house, it rains on my neighbor's house also, who's a Republican. He wants the same thing in the county that I want, and so the same thing. Just like when I was living on Colony Road in New Haven, my neighbor who was a Hasidic Jew, right next door to me, he wanted the same thing for his family that I wanted for my family, and we were always cordial with one another. We lived right next door to one another, and so I was helpful to him. And and so Josh Sandman is another person lived right around the corner from me, a good friend of mine, a good, decent man with a decent family. In fact, his son was an alderman. Beautiful people, and so that's what we have here, which is very similar to when I was alderman at Beaver Hills years ago. And so again, the similarities are so close, Paul, and that kind of scares me a little bit, if you will.
Jenkins, Jeff Klaus says Jenkins for mayor. So what about the mechanics this time? So you've been involved in campaigns. You said, before the virus hit, you got started on this current one you're running, so you were able to do face-to-face. But what about now? How are people going to vote? What do you see in the presidential election this year? How do you see things working or not working?
Well, here they sent an absentee ballot to every single, and they may have done it nationwide, I don't know, but certainly here in Georgia, they forwarded an absentee ballot to every registered voter in the state of Georgia. And but of course, they didn't affix self-addressed stamps on there, so you have to put your own stamp. Now that may cause a problem for some voters who are dealing with some severe fiscal issues. They may not
or can't leave the house.
They may not feel well. Actually, you can, Paul. On June 9th is when our election is, and so you can vote. You can vote in person on June 9th. That is the only time in which you can vote. But other than that, I voted absentee. My wife, my kids voted absentee, and those are guaranteed votes. And I encourage people to vote. It's real funny, Paul. My mother said to me, she said, "If you ever want to win an election, do your ABs," and that's what we did to help John Daniels win. We did our ABs in the 30th ward, and I remember with those having stacks of applications going all over the doggone ward, having people fill out applications for absentee ballots. And so I believe in that concept. It works very well. So that's some advice that anyone who wishes to run, do your ABs and you will win.
Especially now.
Yeah.
Especially now. So June 9th, is that a primary, Brian, or is it a general election?
It's whoever wins. Well, actually, I'm glad you asked that question, Paul. It is a primary election, but they have what they call
nonpartisan.
Yeah, well, yes, it's nonpartisan, but in up north, whoever gets the most votes wins. Right. Down here, if you have multiple people running, they have what they call a runoff. Mm-hmm. Right, and so the primary. So if you don't get 50 plus 1, you're now in a runoff. If there's more than 2 people running,
and it's not by party, right?
Pardon?
Everybody votes, right? Everybody votes. It's not by party, right? Everybody's in it together.
Correct. Everyone votes.
So that's right. That's sort of like, it's a little bit like ranked choice voting or runoff voting, which a lot of us up here want to see happen, where you can vote for multiple candidates in order, or the argument is that it promotes positive campaigning rather than negative, because you want the other side's supporters on the next round if they don't get enough.
But the only catch
on the ground, like, are they throwing mud at you, or is it
no? But the only catch is this, Paul. If, for example, if you're a Republican, you take a Democratic ballot to vote in the primary, you must also take a Democratic ballot to vote in the runoff.
Oh,
No,
so
okay.
after the runoff, is there also a general election then?
Yeah, that's if you have a Republican opponent, and you don't, and there's no Republican running. So whoever wins in the runoff wins.
Is there a Republican running this year?
No,
Oh, so this is the election.
correct, correct. Well, this is the election June 9th, but again, there's three people running, and all three of us
Okay.
are Democrats. And so
Okay.
whoever gets the most, of course, whoever gets the least will not be in the runoff. So the runoff comprises of two people.
Gotcha. And we're talking to Brian Jenkins. We only have a couple minutes left, and thanks for all the comments, everybody. Hey, Brian, how's you were running a successful small business, a landscaping and design home improvement business. You still running that?
I am. I
How's
am.
that going?
It's going very well. We love designs. We do landscape designs. We don't mow lawns. We just do designs. We put in lawns and ponds and walls and sidewalks and put in trees and flowers and all kinds of stuff, mulch and put it. I mean, I enjoy it immensely. I truly do, because that freedom and that solitude of being alone and being able to go to work when I get ready, leave when I get ready, and make my prices. And so I enjoy it. I've been doing it for quite some time now. And here you can almost work all year round. We don't have snow. So, well, periodically we do. I've been here 16 years. I think it snowed maybe three or four times, but the snow normally
Do you
lasts.
go
Yeah.
do you go drive around ever to places that have used your designs and like look at your work and see it that way?
I do. I always do. As I share with my clients, I actually, once a client becomes, once an individual becomes my client, that property, I kind of call it mine. So I kind of adopt that property, that landscape, and so I go by and make sure that that they're taking good care of it, or I'll go and give them some pointers and free of charge. Some of the things that I think they should do to continue to enhance the beauty of it. And so, but yeah, I do that periodically.
Pride in work, how important that is to feel
Yeah.
like you make a difference,
Yeah,
whether
well,
it's running
that's my
for
baby.
office or at a
Yeah.
business. So, Brian Jenkins, what's next for you? We're gunning to a new phase of our lives numerically, right? Have you
Yes.
hit the 60 yet?
I'll be 60 next month, actually.
I'll be 60 next month, actually.
When's your birthday, Paul?
I don't know if I say it publicly, the 10th. How about you?
I'm June 18th.
See, I knew there were a lot of like similarities in our lives. How you feeling about that? How you feeling about that?
I mean, I actually feel good, Paul. I really do. I feel good. I try to take very good care of myself. I'm starting this keto diet thing.
That is a weird diet. I was cooking
Yeah.
for my wife when she was on the keto. That
Yeah,
is an
yeah.
interesting
But
diet.
Paul, but I kind of love it though. I mean, look, I eat a lot of vegetables and stuff anyway, and I have a lot of vegetables. Fruit. I have plenty of fruit trees on my property. I have a huge pecan tree. I got 4 fig trees. I have 4 apple trees, 4
Wow.
four peach trees, 1 pear tree, 1 plum tree.
Wow.
And I grow pumpkins and squash and beans and
Wow.
and so I have 4 acres, and so I really try to use as much as land as I possibly can, and so I really enjoy it, and it's pretty cathartic when I go around and make sure that I look at my trees, look at the health of my trees, and find out what's going on, and so then I got a pond down at the back of my property, got turtles and frogs and stuff in there, and
Wow.
and so I enjoy it, I really do, Paul. I truly enjoy it. It's similar to Brookside. In my backyard, when I lived in Brookside, it was pretty wooded, and I spent all my time in the woods. Come home, do my homework, and go right to the woods. My dog and I, and so Brookside was a development like none other. No other area in the city of New Haven was like Brookside. We had 3 Judges Cave and the Nature Center and all the streams that will run through Brookside and the baseball field. And we just did a whole lot in that area. And it was just a beautiful place growing up. You had folk who lived in the suburbs who didn't have what we had in Brookside. And so yeah,
It
I mean,
sounds like
I enjoy
sounds
it.
like you got some pretty nice stuff down there now. How do you keep the bugs or critters from eating all your peaches and plums and that stuff?
Well, I don't believe in pesticides, and so I can
Mhm.
go through my garden and just wipe off the tomato or something, rub it on my shirt, and just eat it because I don't use pesticides. And so I try to do everything organic. And I'm of the belief that birds and bugs are going to have their field so long as I get to have mine also. So, what are you going to do? You share with the nature. There's not much. I'm not going to beat myself up trying to stop bugs from eating my plants and stuff. So, I can do what I can, try to pick off the bugs with my hands, or I use some natural stuff like dishwashing detergent and water and spray that on my plants, and that seems to
I
uh,
think that's where the world's going. Combination of climate change and the destruction of groundwater and our health through
yeah.
pesticides. There's a whole worldwide movement that way. Brian Jenkins, it's been really nice to catch up with you. Do you have anything else you want to make sure to say before we get ready for the next show?
Well, I pray for the city of New Haven. Uh, and that we must look out for one another. We cannot live a life that is based solely on self-interest. We have senior citizens who are struggling, who are on fixed incomes, who can't children or loved ones to come and visit them. We must find out who these individuals are and um, and give them some attention and find who don't have positive role models in their life, be that male or female. And these children do need positive role models in their life. And if you have, they can't just live a life and focus on our own personal wealth and say, well, my children have it and I have it and I move in this, I live in the suburbs. I lived in the suburbs. I lived on Colony Road when I out in Brookside, out in Rockview. And I'll never forget a young man who was shot 3 times in the back and he dropped dead in my arms as I was giving him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And so I gave myself to the poorest area. But I always returned back there. And I think that we must understand how important that is. And even as mayors, as aldermen, as state legislators, we must understand the importance of giving back and not just be what I call a groundhog politician. You just come from under the ground when it's time. And so those are groundhog politicians. And so I believe that you must be vigilant all the time and finding out what the needs are all the time. And that goes for the clergy as
Mhm.
well,
All right.
themselves in a shooting. And then all of a sudden we come and pounce and do marches and all that. No, what about the shooting of the black on black violence? Why aren't you marching for that? What
Mhm.
marching for that? But yet we can only march when a white person kills someone black. I have problems with that, Paul. I truly do. But yet we have white police officers who come together and Christmas time, they put their dollars together, organizations applauding them for those efforts. And so I applaud those white officers for those efforts. And so if we can, in my view, be critical of them when they do something good. And so that's fair. I believe in fairness. I don't get caught up in white versus black versus white, Republican versus Democrat. I don't get caught up in that.
All right. Well, Brian Jenkins, thank you so much for making
Black
time
people,
checking
horrible
back
white
up.
people. Yeah. So
All right.
so yeah, that's
Brian
just the way I
Jenkins.
see life, Paul.
Well, it was great hearing, checking in with you. Thank you for keeping in touch with New Haven and weighing in on the debates of the day. Good luck on June 9th with your election. Good luck with that great set of trees you're taking care of in property. That sounds wonderful
Yeah.
down there.
Keeps me busy, my
Thank-
friend. It's been a pleasure
All right.
talking to you, Paul.
And keep healthy. I'm glad you're healthy. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Thanks to today's guest, Brian Jenkins. Thanks to the miracle man behind the controls, WNHA station manager, Harry Droz. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. From the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH FM, New Haven's home. Community Radio.